The Variety Artist, episode 29. This one's all about a man and his passions. Make sure to tell your Variety Artist friends about this podcast. That's how we can create an entire movement.
Welcome to The Variety Artist, providing aspiring artists and entertainers with in-depth discussions from top performers from all over the world. So get ready to book some gigs, make some money, and have some fun with your host, John Abrams.
Today's guest is a spectacular prestidigitator who's recently performed and lectured at Abbotts and the S.A.M, S-A-M. Captivated audiences at tons of casinos, received numerous awards, and entertained on multiple cruises around the world. His magical journey continues here. Variety Artist, I give you Dameon, a.k.a. Hal Meyers.
Wow, that's really cool. I'd like to know that. Oh, wait, that's me.
That is you.
Oh, man, John.
How you doing, Hal?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm up. I'm ready. I got my coffee. I'm ready to go.
This is great. Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I appreciate you being here. Now, we're going to talk about magic, and something that a lot of people listening to this don't know is that you have an amazing music career also. So we're going to talk about magic, music, secrets, your name, all sorts of different things. But before we get into that, what does kind of your personal life look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's interesting. It's taken a very interesting turn. For a number of years, I was performing continuously. Then I took a break. And at the same time, I invented a product, and we'll get into that later.
Yep.
And I wound up moving from New Jersey to Maine. And I did a lot of things with my family, did a lot of things with my kids. And it was kind of a normal life, but I was just having fun, entertaining here and there, doing magic, doing the music. And then about 8 years ago, I found out that the state was going to put a road through my house.
Oh.
So it took a very interesting turn. I spent a lot of time researching and then finding out that there was really no recourse. So my day-to-day life for a couple of years was just spent trying to figure out what to do. And then the whole thing came to a head recently. So believe it or not, I actually left the state of Maine about a week and a half ago.
Oh.
I got myself a huge trailer. My life has changed considerably. I'm no longer married.
Oh.
Oh, no. I'm just, this is, why not? What the hell? This is great. So I'm kind of on the road, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to be going. I'm staying with a friend for a little bit right now in Massachusetts. I plan on hitting the road, and at the same time, a series of lectures are going to be booked, and hopefully I'll get into some shows and do some other things. But yeah, right now, I'm taking a little time just to breathe.
So did all this happen at the same time?
Over the course of a few years, the road thing really, really affected me tremendously. I really jumped in head first, trying everything I could do and organizing and it was all for naught. And at the same time, things were happening in my personal life. And so now everything came to a head basically within the last 2 months. And like I said, I just left Maine about a week and a half ago.
And here you are.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, but in the meantime, what happened, which was fantastic, is that my dear friend Mike Miller, who was the S.A.M president, had asked me a few years ago, do I want to start doing the magic again that I was doing? And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. So we put together the show that we did at Abbotts in about 3 years ago with Leland and Peter Samuelson and John Bundy and Morgan and Keith Fields. And so I'm back into doing what I'm doing. It's just going to take a little time to get seen again, because once you stop, you disappear real fast.
What a group. What a big group of talented folks.
Yeah. All friends of mine. I've known them for years and years, except for Leland. Leland I met about 4 years ago through Jeff McBride, and we became fast friends. When I discovered who he was and what he did, I was blown away. Just his mime skills alone freaked me out, because he was one of the top students of Tony Montanaro, and Tony Montanaro was a hero of mine. And so the connection was instantaneous.
Anybody who doesn't know who Leland Faulkner is, he's an amazing entertainer, and he did my podcast, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yes.
So you can actually hear his podcast, and you can hear him. He is brilliant and amazing.
As a matter of fact, I was standing with him at Abbotts when Tom Mullica turned to him and said, that was the best chapeau routine I've ever seen.
So you guys got together and did the S.A.M convention?
Yes, we did. it was, Mike had said to me, he said, who would you like to see on the show? And I said, well, let's recreate the Abbott show if we can. Fortunately, Keith had already done the S.A.M., I think a year or so before. We discussed using Michael and Menez, the juggler. And Michael and I did a tour years ago. It was what I call a circus tour. We did a number of weeks and traveled 200-300 miles a day. It was amazing. And Michael is just incredible. And I was so excited that he was available and able to do it. The show was a blast. It really was.
Those are big conventions in the magic world. If you're listening to this and you're not a magician, you may not know what Abbotts and S.A.M are, but they're huge conventions that all the big magicians go to. Actually, a lot of magicians in the country go to.
I toured in Miami. I was in Miami Beach for almost 2.5 years, and I toured with a show. I went around the globe places, and so many people that I had known from Miami were at the convention. It was incredible. It really was. I was so excited.
Now, I heard that you stopped doing magic for a while. Is that right?
Yeah. When I decided to move up to Maine, and the reason I decided to move up to Maine, I co-invented a product with a gentleman by the name of Dean Stern, another incredible magician. He and I created a product called the Skyliner.
Yep.
This thing that you twirl and words appear in midair. It got very popular very fast in places like Disney World and Disneyland.
Yeah, it's really cool. Everybody has seen that. It spins around. And at first, you probably don't see anything, right? And then as it spins, all of a sudden, a word kind of appears in the spinning of the piece.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And what happened was the very first one was very simple. It had, like 10, 12 messages, and you could program a message, but the programmed message would not stay if it turned off. It would turn off when it stopped spinning for about 30 seconds. It would just turn off automatically. The next iteration allowed you to save the message. And then the third iteration was like twice the height of the letters. You could program and save up to 3 messages, up to 18 characters. And it had at least a dozen or more. I actually think it was closer to 18 pre-programmed words. So it was a blast. We sold quite a few of them.
You and a partner invented that?
Well, we took the technology, which was out there for years and years, and we put it into this usable format. You were able to hold it, twirl it over your head. You could see it. You could program it easily. We had a design patent on it. And then it turns out we ran into a guy who had a patent for the technology called persistence of vision. And we wound up having him partner with us. Then we actually had a provisional patent on the technology. We had the design patent, and we just went from there. It was a lot of fun. Very cool.
And that was when you were taking a break from the magic.
That's when I started taking a break from the magic, and we created other products as well. There was an inflatable megaphone. There was pom-poms that lit up. All these things that I thought were going to make me a multimillionaire.
And?
Well, it doesn't quite work that way. But I never stopped practicing. I never stopped rehearsing. I never stopped playing music and doing the magic at the same time because I could.
Well, let's talk about that magic music thing. Tell us about your music career a little before we get into full steam ahead on the magic.
I've always loved playing. I started playing guitar when I was 11 years old, basically self-taught. I'm a finger picker, and I'm okay. I'm okay. I can sort of play, a few little things. I can carry a semi tune. When I was 17, I saw this banjo and I was like blown away, and I wanted to play, so I bought a banjo and I started playing it, and unfortunately, though, I knew nothing about the banjo nor the genre of music that a lot of people were playing. So I got to a certain point and I couldn't get any better. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I put it down, and actually I started touring doing magic, so I kind of got rid of it. Then I wound up going, and I was working in Atlantic City at the Showboat. There were a couple of riverboat banjo players, beautiful, amazing musicians. One of them happened to have a 5-string banjo for sale, and I overheard it. I said, "Oh, really? How much?" And he said, "That." So I bought it. Oh. I bought it, and I decided I wanted to play. So then, this is great. You're going to love this.
Go.
So I figured, I better take some lessons. So I call up this thing called Banjo Newsletter. And they said, there's a guy in your area in New Jersey by the name of Tony Trischka. Now, for anybody who knows, most people don't, Tony Trischka is considered the father of modern bluegrass banjo. And he's amazing, just phenomenal. So I called him. I really didn't know who he was at the time. I called him and I said, I'd like to get a lesson. So he said, yeah, sure. So I went over at night and I just started playing, and I was watching him like my mouth would pop open, my jaw would drop to the floor. I'm like, I cannot believe this guy. He's incredible. And so I'm taking like basic banjo with like one of the best players in the world. Then I move up to Maine.
Yeah. And
I run into a bunch of guys. Someone introduced me to someone, and they said, well, you come on and jam with us. So I started jamming with these guys. And one of them turns and says, well, I have some really good friends called the Kruger brothers. Mm-hmm. And this guy, Jens Kruger, is a really good banjo player. And I'm thinking, Jens Kruger, I heard the name. Then I go to see him at a show, and I'm sitting there with my wife and in this little place, little Grange Hall. And the Kruger brothers, that's Jens, his brother Uwe, and Joel, their bass player.
And Joel.
And Joel. Oh, man. I'm listening to them, and I'm crying. My wife turns to me. She goes, are you okay? And I'm going, no. I'd never heard anything like this. This man was playing and hitting my heart and hitting my soul. The musicianship was so incredible that I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I was just crying. Oh. So I wind up meeting these guys and talking to them, and they are the nicest people in the world. And it turns out that they're just regular guys. It's just they play for a living, and they're so good. I would say that Jens and Bellafleck are probably the two best banjo players on the planet. They would never admit it. They would never ever. That's how great. They would never say anything. But when you hear them play, it affects you. Bella sort of hits me in the head. It's very cerebral. But Jens hits me in the heart. So, taking all these things, I joined that group of guys, and we started playing, the guys in Maine, not the Kruger brothers, because you don't ask them to play with them. You just listen and just smile. Anyway, so I'm playing with these group of guys, like 7 guys, and they're great musicians. I was so lucky. And we started playing all over the place. We were called Neva, kind of like never too late, never too early, never give up. And then the band wound up breaking up after 5, 6, 7 years, and I started playing a lot solo. Someone called me and said, would you like to do a solo thing? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done that since I was 16, 17. So I said, yeah, sure. So I immediately wrote down every song I knew, started practicing it, and I started playing solo. And then one of the guys from the band, a mandolin player and guitar player, I asked him if he wanted to play with me, because it's more fun to play with, music with somebody else, and then they can harmonize with you. And so we just started playing all over the place.
Is that Riff Johnson?
Oh, that's another friend of mine.
Oh,
that was another guy. I run into this guy, Riff Johnson, at a party, and we sit down and we start playing. Now he's playing guitar and I'm playing banjo, but I start playing like Hotel California on banjo, and he starts laughing and he starts joining in. The guy's got a great voice. So and everybody stopped, like, oh my God, they're playing banjo and guitar, Hotel California. It was so cool. So then he and I started also doing a number of different things together.
There's so many good lessons in that story. One of them is that you contacted somebody that was big in the banjo world when you started playing banjo. So you learned from one of the best.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you pick up some wonderful habits from these people. And what you see is that, first of all, they're human and they do make mistakes.
Right.
But you would never know it. Only they'll know it.
Mm-hmm.
They have such an understanding of what they do, and a love of what they do, and a love of teaching, and a love of sharing. I mean, one of the things that I am a prestidigitator.
Yes.
And I actually, when we were discussing the intro, and I, instead of going magician, I said prestidigitator.
Yes.
I like doing things that require skill and that require my skill. It just makes me feel a little bit better. It's not just presentational skill, but it's hand skill. Mm-hmm. And then I watch these musicians and I realize just how amazing they are, and their skill set is so incredible that it makes me want to be better doing the magic and, of course, the music. And I realize, I could play every day now for 20 hours a day for the next 20 years. I would never be as good as Jens Kruger or Tony Trischka, and that's not going to happen. But I can be the best I can be.
That's right.
And try as hard as I possibly can. I think that's important.
Well, that's important in any art. Whether you're banjo playing or magic, manipulation, prestidigitation, juggling, whatever you're doing, the important thing is you doing your best, not necessarily comparing yourself to other folks.
Right. And the other thing too is when you're watching these people, it looks effortless.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, when I was watching, Tony doing shows and watching Jens, especially Jens, I heard things coming out of the banjo were effortless. I had no idea how they were doing it.
Oh, nice.
And that was another thing with magic as well. I learned that what I'm doing is supposed to look like magic.
Yeah.
And it's a little strange because there are a lot of other arts, music, you can hear what they're doing and you are blown away when they're singing, or watch them playing and you can get blown away by the technique and beautiful. But magic is supposed to be there. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a goal that I love to try and achieve. And that's why Capps was one of my favorite people, because when he worked, he fooled himself.
You're talking about Fred Capps.
Fred Capps. Oh, yeah. There are a lot of things that I do that I look and I laugh like, oh, my. Well, if it fools me, it's going to fool the audience twice as much.
Oh, yeah. Occasionally I'll watch America's Got Talent or Penn and Teller Fool Us. And as a magician, I'm watching that going, oh, okay, he did this or he did that. But then sometimes I'm fooled, and I love that. It's exciting watching that and being fooled as a magician.
I mean, I find myself watching some of these things, and especially online, and I keep replaying it over and over, going, "Oh my word, that's incredible!"
Oh yeah,
that feeling, and that's the feeling I want to impart to an audience. I appreciate the stuff online, but I like to see things live. To me, that's more important.
And it's more impressive. Who was I talking to? I was talking on one of these interviews. I was talking to somebody. Oh, yeah, Keith Nelson, who's a circus entertainer.
Okay.
And we were talking about the difference between seeing something live and seeing something on TV or on film. And
Yes.
when you see it live and it's right in front of your face, it's amazing, much more amazing, because when you see it on TV, you have that filter of the screen and you think, well, it's on TV. So
Right.
it's not as impressive. But when you see it right in front of your face, oh my goodness gracious.
I've had friends say, well, people have seen. I said, no, people have not seen a live presentation.
Right.
Oh, I've seen dove worker. I said, no, they have not.
Yeah.
When people see a dove worker for the first time or a manipulator for the first time, they are blown away. If they see close-up magic done well for the first time, they are blown away. Even for the second and third time, if it's presented well, they're blown away. So much more live than on television, and it's fun. It's getting up there and doing a performance where the audience reacts. It's a give and take, and you can hear the responses, and things are working, and you're proceeding with your act or your routine. And it's really wonderful.
And when you have that audience, you're feeding off of what they're giving you.
However, myself, I prefer not to talk when I work.
Your act isn't silent. A lot of your acts are to music, right?
I prefer to work to music. I mean, yes, can I get up and talk and prepare a script? And absolutely. But I prefer to work to music because therefore I can reach and entertain anyone, anywhere in the world. If I can make it visually entertaining and I don't have to sit there and explain something, then to me, that's just the pinnacle. And I have performed quite a few places and never had to say a word, and people understand.
It creates a universal language. If you're from Japan or doing a Japanese cruise, or if you're doing a cruise where somebody doesn't speak English, it doesn't matter.
That's correct. I did 135 cruises in a 3-year time period. I had just been on tour for almost 3 years. I traveled to Spain, Brazil. I was working in Chicago, Miami Beach. Then I wound up in New York City. I was working at the St. Regis Hotel in a show there. Then an agent saw me and booked me on a single cruise. And I got done. I came back and they booked me on one more like a week later. I went, okay. And then I came back and they said, you have a calendar? And I said, yeah. He said, well, they really liked you. I said, well, that's great. Thank you. I said, what do you got? What else do you got? He said, oh, you got the calendar? I said, yeah. And he starts rattling off dates. And I actually started crying. I was really upset. He booked me 50 weeks in a row.
Thanks for telling me.
No, it's very different now than it was, but he booked me 50 weeks in a row. And I thought it was going to destroy my career. And it took me 3 years basically to get off the ship. For me, it was very different. I really didn't want to hang out with my audience. Some people get off on this. I like to do my show, and when I'm done, go hang out with my friends or do something. I really didn't want to have to be on my best behavior constantly and have the audience members come over to you and talk to you all the time. And then at the very end, they got to rate you. Yeah, they get to fill out a card and rate you whether or not they liked you. And it was a very strange feeling for me, because I thought that when you got up and performed and you heard the audience and they're cheering and they're really enjoying it, you get great applause. And I thought that was the rating.
So one of the great things about cruising is, don't you get to spend some time in those different countries?
Well, you do to a point, but you're limited in time. Really, they want you back on the ships to, spend money in the casinos. Sure. And for me, I had passenger status, but you are still on your best behavior. And you're still representing the cruise line.
Right,
exactly. You represent the cruise line, yourself, and you really want to put your best foot forward.
On a 10-day cruise, how many times are you performing?
I only did twice.
Oh.
I would do one day, and then like 5 or 6, 7 days later, I would do another. So I basically 2 shows on one day, and then 2 shows on another day. Generally, I worked the formal night because I was one of the most formally dressed people. And at that time, Carnival Cruise Lines had just started, so formal wear and being dressed was really what people did.
It's a different time now.
It's very different from what I understand.
Yeah, even getting on airplanes nowadays. You look at old film footage of people getting on airplanes in suits and ties, and nowadays you're in flip-flops, you're in shorts, you're whatever.
Well, I used to travel with doves and ducks. Oh, yeah. I used to travel all over the world with my doves and my ducks.
Oh, with ducks?
Yeah. And I never had a problem. I used to get all the paperwork done at the USDA, and then I would have a veterinarian meet me at the port, and they would check my animals, or they would check me whenever I flew into some place. I had all the paperwork with me, but nowadays you can't fly with them like that. So, that's a bit problematic.
Can you fly with a dove at all? I mean, I just travel around Southern California with my doves. Can you travel now from country to country at all with livestock?
I don't think you can. I know that in the States, if you need to use your doves, you can actually send them via U.S. Postal, believe it or not.
Oh.
Yeah, over, like, it's a 2-day thing. And doves can survive. You put food in there, and here's a big tip. When you travel with your animals, if you need to travel, make sure they have water, you take a sponge. You put a sponge in their water dish. You make sure that it's saturated, that it's not dripping, but it's saturated. Then the doves can actually press into the sponge and they get water.
Mm.
And I travel with my doves in the back of my vehicle. I have 2 cages. I travel with like 13 doves now.
Oh.
And I have them divided into 2 cages, and I have the water, like I said, and the sponge, and I have food in there, and they're fine. I put my food in ice cube trays, and they just eat, and they're cool.
I travel with 2 doves.
Yeah.
Around Southern California.
Wow.
I know, it's easy.
But, and then it is problematic in terms of hotels and things, because they make a lot of noise.
Right.
You want to be considerate. I always try and be considerate of others. So,
wait, can you hear mine in the background? Oh, he just stopped.
Yeah, of course. Of course he did. It's on cue. Yeah.
Sometimes on this interview, you can hear my doves in the background.
Yeah. Well, when I stay places or whatever, I try and keep them in a secure area, but away, not in someone's house. If I have to put them in the garage, I do, and they're elevated, and they're in the 2 large cages. It's a noise issue. Much as the dander, you really don't want to have them in your own personal room, in your own personal space. You don't want to be breathing their dander. It's not good for you.
In fact, my dad got sick. It wasn't necessarily doves, but it was a bird sickness. And he went to the hospital, and he had lung problems, and nobody for a long time knew what it was. And then eventually they figured out that it was the dander and the dust from the bird poop that he was inhaling, and it was hurting his lungs. And he ended up going to the hospital and got sick for, a good 2 weeks.
The first person I knew about that was Jeff Korst, a phenomenal magician. And he was an incredible dove worker. He's a great manipulator, super nice guy. He was the first person I heard that had issues. And then, of course, David Oliver, very, very sick, a double lung transplant, I believe.
Ooh.
You have to be careful. I've been fortunate. I keep them. I don't put them in an area where I'm going to be breathing the dander. And if I do have to be in a confined area, I would have put a fan drawing the air in the room out the window.
Let's talk about your magic career, because I know we talked a little bit about cruises, but as I was doing research on this, I saw some old footage and old pictures of you.
Wow.
I got to tell you, the hair is awesome.
Well, thank you. And at that time, I did have this hair, and one of the pictures with the hairs, it was on the cover of a puzzle box. It's called Mystery at the Magic Bazaar. Mm-hmm. Yes, I had this really neat hair. But what happened was, when I was doing the original show, my hair was cut short because it worked best with the show, and I was the act in a show, basically female impersonators.
Oh,
so at that time, I was the act in the show, and I had short hair. It worked with the theme of the show in the cabaret section. And then when I got out, I kind of let my hair grow. And for years, my hair was long, even when I started doing the ships. And they were saying, you kind of got. I said, yeah, okay. As long as I kept it, neat, which I did. Then when I finally got myself off the ships, I wound up meeting a gentleman by the name of Patrick Lucas, who was an image consultant. He created Cyndi Lauper's look. And he worked with the Bengals, the Hooters, Carly Simon, numerous people. He did their hair, their makeup, their clothing selection, everything. So I went to him. I hired him to work with me, and he took my hair and just turned it into this great looking thing, and just created that look with the rhinestones on my costume that I still use. It was very different, and it creates a statement. It made me feel wonderful, and the hair was huge.
The hair was huge. I know. You look at pictures of famous magicians in the 70s and 80s, and they had huge hair. I wasn't a famous magician, but when I first started doing this, I also had the huge hair.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Then I started doing corporate gigs and schools and things, and cut it short because that's what they needed and that's what they wanted.
Now, here's the thing, too. When I started to lose the hair as I got older, freaked me out a bit, quite a bit. I mean, I kept it up for a while, and ponytail and other things. Then I wound up in that show called Shaboom, in Atlantic City, and it was a 50s style show, so it was okay to kind of cut it. So I cut my hair actually for the first time in like 5 or 6 years, and it was cool. And then I started losing more and more, and I even got a hairpiece for a while, which was very interesting. Freaked me out a bit. You didn't ride roller coasters, so
swimming was a problem.
You're gonna laugh, because when I went to New Zealand, because I did the New Zealand tour. When I went to New Zealand, I had been wearing short hair pieces. So I went to the guy and I said, do me a favor, I'd like a long hairpiece. So he created a long hairpiece for me. And I went to New Zealand with that long hairpiece. Now, you couldn't tell. It was really it was very expensive hairpiece. And it was attached with glue, like crazy glue. So here I am in New Zealand. The one thing about that particular method of adherement is that it's attached to very short hairs. They cut your hair very short and they attach it to it. But as your hair starts to grow, the hairpiece starts to move. So I'm here for like 4 or 5 weeks. All of a sudden, I'm feeling it feels a little weird. So I found somebody that knew what to do to help me sort of reattach it firmly. But it was this very strange feeling. So I did that. And then after that, I went back to the shorter thing. And then a few years later, I just decided, you know what? I don't need the hairpiece anymore. I stopped. And then I actually decided to shave my head.
Yeah.
Which was very strange for me. And I wanted to get back in doing the magic. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So the Dameon character, I think, takes on a whole new dimension with the bald look.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask about that because your character totally changed over the years, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, I chose the name Dameon. This is funny. I was doing the show in Miami Beach and everything. And when I would get done, people would walk over because I used my name Hal Meyers. Mm-hmm. And they would grab my cheek and they'd walk over and you're such a nice boy. And I thought, man, I got to change this. I wanted the magic to be so strong and people. So
oh, sweet Hal, you're so nice.
Yeah, that's it, right? So I was doing the show in Chicago, and I was actually hanging out with Danny Orleans. Actually, the show had ended in Chicago, and while we were doing it, I decided I wanted to change my name.
Yeah.
So looking up all kinds of names, and I came up with the name Oberon, Shakespearean, and then finally, for some reason, Dameon just hit me. I love that name. However, At the time, a lot of review shows were hiring European acts. So I thought I would spell it differently, and I do. I spell it Dameon.
Okay.
And I had an accent over the O, so I pronounced it Dameon.
Oh, fancy schmancy.
Right, exactly, right? But nobody else pronounced it that way. so I got rid of the accent. I still kept the weird spelling, and I pronounced it Dameon. And it just gave the character this edge. So then, when I wound up actually on the ships, people would not talk to me. As I would walk by, they would go, "Oh my gosh, that's Dameon. That's that," which I loved. I really enjoyed that.
You're like, hey, everybody's leaving me alone. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It was crazy, and I absolutely loved that. And it just gave even more of a sense of mystery. So that was fun. However, the character is exactly who you think he'd be. Dameon is the devil. That is who he is. And I do things, though, to make you laugh on purpose. I'm going to fool you. For instance, at one point in the routine, I produced 2 doves. I put them both away, and I walk forward, and there's an egg in my hand. And I look at it, I kind of laugh, and I shake the egg, and then I toss it, and I miss it. The egg, the audience is like, oh, gasp. Then it hits the floor and bounces. They realize it's a ball. So it's Dameon fooling you, making you, feel something, and then it's a ball. Now you laugh. Then I start doing manipulation, and then I go on from there. And I do several things like that. Like I produce a banana. Out of nowhere. Why? Because, again, it's one of those Dameon moments. It's kind of like, ha, I got you. and you laugh. Well, the Pacino character in Devil's Advocate.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he says, they never see me coming. And that's kind of what I like. But I like to have that little bit of a smile because I think that's playing with the audience. And then I fool myself, which fools them. And the magic is even stronger, I think.
Getting the audience on your side at the very beginning of your act is one of the most important things to do.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
And by doing those what seem to be silly little things for a character who is the devil, it would get the audience on your side.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of catches them by surprise because when I first turn around, and I usually start with my back because I like that. That's part of the thing with the jewels on the tuxedo is that the light hits the back, and as I turn, it kind of it picks up as I turn, and it's like the image is hopefully it takes their breath away. And I do that on purpose. And I walk forward and I kind of give a little bit of a bow and I smile, and then my hand catches on fire. And then I reach over, boom, silk, first dove.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and I put it down and I walk over stage right and I take off my glove and I kind of bow like I look at somebody deeper in the audience, and I go stage left and I do the same thing and I pull off the gloves and I turn and look at them, bang, another dove. Then I put them, so it's, I do create an interaction almost immediately. Well,
tell me your theory. When you're putting together a routine like that or a new routine, you have kind of an opener, a middle, and a closer? Or how do you structure a new routine?
The first thing in my mind is I'm looking for a wow moment. I know this sounds crazy, but what is going to be the wow moment? What's going to catch them by surprise? For instance, I do a routine with magic markers. Okay. It's a thimble routine.
Yep.
It has an opener that will catch you by surprise. It's almost silly, and it makes you laugh, and it's a bit awkward. And then all of a sudden you realize there's a moment, and then the magic happens. I try and get the audience to immediately understand what's going to happen. I draw them in. For instance, again, the thimble routine, I know what it is. It's going to be a thimble's going to appear, and then it's going to jump up and down my fingers, right. And then at the end it's going to multiply.
Right.
So I have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I know how I want to end, but I try and do less is more. Yeah. On everything I do, I don't know if you noticed, but I don't spend a lot of time dragging it out. I like to get to the point. So for instance, with the thimble routine, I just look at somebody for a second, which creates a bit of an awkward moment. I'm just staring at somebody and I hold up my thumb.
Especially with your character, right?
Right. It's like, oh my gosh, is he looking at me? And I do that on purpose. Then I grab a pad and I open it up and I show the pad and I hold my thumb up again and I pretend to look at somebody. And then I have a magic marker in my hand. I have the pad. And now it's an awkward moment, very awkward moment. But this all happens very quickly. The cap is on the pad, so I take the cap off with my teeth. Then I hold my thumb up again, and then I draw. I draw and I draw and I look at this person. I stare at that person. Boom, draw, and it all happens very quickly. And then I turn the pad, and it's really the old clown gag of the thumb.
Okay.
I've done the thumb gag. Okay.
Okay.
And they all laugh, ha ha ha, and I laugh, and it's only seconds. It only happens in a few seconds, 15, maybe 20 seconds, if that. And I put the pad away. I put the magic marker in my other hand, and I realize that the cap is in my teeth, and then I reach in to grab it, and my finger gets stuck in the magic marker cap. So now I've set up a situation. I've let you know that this is a magic marker. I let you know that that is the cap from the magic marker, and then it gets caught. My opener is recognition, my middler is entertainment, and my closer is wow, bang, the magic. That's what I try and do for everything.
That's perfect.
Oh, and this is something that I think that even talk acts should do. I try and select music.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Select music and know the time. In other words, if you said to me, how long is your act? I would say it's 12 minutes and 23 seconds.
Because that's how long the music is.
That's how long the music is. So if you're going to do an act in a show, and this is really important for anybody doing, I don't care if you're doing a club show, I don't care if you're doing a magic convention. If they say to you, we want you to do 20 minutes, well, guess what? You should do 20 minutes. It's not fair to the other entertainers if you do 35 or 40 or even 23 minutes. Do 20. Now, how can you do 20 minutes? It's real simple. Have some music in the background with various cues so that you know where you're at, even in a talk act, so that you know where you're at. You hear this piece of music, oh, I know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Bang. And when the music ends, you are done.
If you ever go on any television show too, they say you have 4 minutes. And when they say 4 minutes, they mean 4 minutes.
Well, when you're doing shows at casinos, a casino, guess what? Even though you're in a show at a casino, great, that's fine. But guess what? They don't need you.
Yeah.
They really want people to gamble.
That's right. They're looking for the money, and you're there to bring people in so they can spend money.
And sometimes to give them a break so they can go spend more money.
Yeah.
So when I was doing Shaboom, the show was supposed to run an hour and 20. Well, guess what? We ran an hour and 20 because they want people to go into the casino and gamble. And they're right. We are a minor bit of entertainment. It may bring people in, but the real thing is the gambling. So
money.
When they ask you to do 20 minutes or 15 or 10, then do that time. But the best way to do it is to have a soundtrack behind you so that you know where you're at.
That's smart. Years ago, or maybe, I don't know if it was recently, you made Will Smith appear in front of Tower Records?
That is correct. In 1999, Will Smith was introducing the Millennium album. And I got a call from a friend of mine, another very well-known magician, Mark Mitten out of New York. So he called me up and he said that there was a magician that was hired to do something to produce Will Smith. And they were a little concerned about the illusion being ready on time. Mm-hmm. And I happened to have, at that point, a stack of boxes that was just perfect. And he said, would you be willing to work with this guy? Oh, I wound up producing Will Smith in front of Tower Records in November. And oh, it was a blast. He had a super, super nice guy. And basically the illusion was there. We pushed it out. The boxes were stacked in different places. We gathered them, put them on top. Boom, he appeared. It was very, very cool.
How neat. And recently, on the way back from one of your conventions, you've been working with Paul Romani on the Vanish magazine?
Oh, yeah, Paul Romani. I pronounce Paul Romani. Yep. So I met Paul in New Zealand, and we became very good friends. And then when he started Vanish magazine, we started corresponding. So in issue number 10, I wrote an article on my trip to North Korea, which I kept quiet for over 20 some odd years. Because it's digital, I was able to write a 35-page article, and we were able to put the whole article with pictures in the magazine.
Oh,
but by working with Paul, I can get, I can suggest things, and if he likes the idea, we work on the article. Like we just did a photo spread in the Anastasia Sin Vanish magazine. I did a photo spread on Denny and Lee's. Talk about one of the great great entertainers in magic. Denny is one of the best. So when I was going down to Orlando, I stopped at the shop and was blown away. I hadn't seen it in years and years because he had moved to a new place. The volume of material and the things that was there, I emailed Paul. I said, Paul, we have to do a pictorial, and he agreed. So hence, in this past issue, if you check it out at Vanish International Magazine, you will see an incredible spread of his shop, and it's a must pilgrimage for any magician, period.
And that's in Maine?
No. He's in Delaware.
Oh. All right, we're going to move on to the variety artist's favorite game, Fact or Something John just made up. Sound like fun?
I'm ready for it. Rock and roll.
Is it fact? Or is it something John just made up?
I'm going to give you a headline, and you're going to tell me whether it's true or not, and maybe fill me in on the story behind it.
Excellent.
Here we go. First headline. Ricciardi, the world-renowned illusionist, got Hal his first gig.
That is true. I did my act with a mannequin, which was it was new and different.
Okay, wait. Let's talk about this Mannequin Act. What is this Mannequin Act that you're talking about?
Okay. Well, I'm going to fill you in. Jeff McBride and I hung out all the time. I mean, I hung out in New York City with Jeff forever. And he was working at Cafe Versailles or Club Ibis at the time. There was an opening that they put together where one of the dancers was a mannequin. And Jeff started doing magic with her at the very beginning of the show. And it was like, it was so cool. Very, very, very neat. I went with Jeff actually to a Larry Weeks convention and ran into Ricciardi. And I knew Ricciardi took young magicians on tour. So I walked over to him and I said, hi, my name's Hal Meyers. I'd love to go on tour with you. And he said, he looked at me and he goes, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a manipulator. At that time, I didn't even have an act. He said to me, he said, well, great. He says, give me a call. And he gave me his phone number. And the next day at like 11 o'clock in the morning, I called him up. And he said, I'd like to see what you do. So I went in and we talked. I had photos of various things, but I didn't really have anything. He said, well, let me see what I can find. I'd like to see what you do. So on the way home from that meeting with him, I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And all of a sudden, the mannequin idea popped in my head. So I thought, wow, wouldn't this be cool? I don't have an assistant, but if I got myself a mannequin, I could do things and interact with the mannequin. Of course, she wouldn't react because it's a mannequin. And 2 weeks later, I get a call from Ricciardi saying, I'd like to see you. I've got this show for you. So I called up a friend of mine. His name was Ken Allen. He had a little magic shop in Union, New Jersey. Ken lent me a mannequin. I took the mannequin. I got a skirt for it and a shirt, and I adapted it, put a few little holes, did some things so I could steal things from the mannequin. And I had her holding a newspaper, which was actually a set of jumbo cards. And in her skirt, which was a little bit away from her body, the I would produce cards, drop them into the paper, and they would actually slide down into the skirt. So they disappeared. At the very end, I'd pick up the paper, walk forward, open it up, boom, and turn into a huge fan of cards. Anyway, I was doing things for the mannequin and asking kind of like, well, why don't you take this from me? And the mannequin just stood there because it was a mannequin.
Yeah.
And Ricciardi saw that. So he books me on this show, and I said, well, great, what do they want for the act? He goes, the Mannequin Act. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
My Mannequin Act.
Right. So I went out and I bought a mannequin. You know, I cut a hole in the stomach. There was a trap door in the mannequin. There was a place to steal things from the front to back. And I worked up this act that I did for this show that I traveled with for almost 3 years. I did that act for about a year and a half. Then I cut it out and just did straight manipulation and more doves. But that's how the mannequin started. Then when I got married, my wife became the mannequin.
Oh.
Only I had David Mendoza, who's an amazing illusion builder, does stuff for Copperfield. He made me a stand, and I went and had a mask made and all kinds of things. And my wife had an arm behind her back. We had a false arm on the mannequin. You couldn't tell that she was a real person because of the mask.
Wait, your wife had a mask on, so she was, in essence, the mannequin?
She was the mannequin. She was in a stand, like a mannequin stand. She could not move. She had her one arm. It was resting on this form that David Mendoza made, and her hand had wire in the glove on her left hand, so she couldn't move her fingers, just pinch a little bit if she had to. She didn't move. She was totally totally held in place with one arm behind her back and the false arm. They wheeled her out on stage like 3 minutes before I even came out. Would get up on stage and look, they couldn't see because she didn't move. They couldn't tell. So I come out and I start like a mannequin, and I've got a rose in my hand, and I touch the rose, and I prick my finger, and I grab the rose, I pull it off, my hand lights on fire, I touch the rose to it, boom, it vanishes into puff of flash paper into a silk, boom, dove, and I hold the dove up, and then I stop and I look. And of course, she doesn't move. It's a mannequin. So I put the dove on the thing's hand, and I go to the next dove, and same thing. Finally, I wind up taking the doves myself. I put them in the cage, and this is going on and on. At one point, I take off her belt, which is a rope, and I twirl it, and it unfurls, and I cut it. Well, I'm about to cut it, only I don't have a scissor. So I reach over to grab the scissor in her hand, and when I pull it, the entire arm comes off.
Oh,
okay. So the audience is like going, "Oh, I told you it's a mannequin, right?" I take it off and I laugh. I take the scissors off the hand. I toss the arm off stage, and I do the cut and rope. At the very end, I removed her skirt. Now this became problematic for people at times, and I understood. But I removed her skirt, and I took the skirt and I vanished the bird cage with the skirt.
Okay.
Right? Vanished it, and I put the skirt on as a cape, and I bowed, I walked off. Then I would come back out on stage, I would turn, and I would freeze like a mannequin. All of a sudden, she would push up off the stand that she was on, take 2 steps towards me. With her free arm, she would twist her body, and she'd grab the skirt, pull it off of me, and then back fist me with her hand, right? My left hand fell off on a spring.
Oh.
And would dangle. And the spotlight just caught it dangling. She froze, I froze. That was it, right? And you know what the audience reaction was? Perfect silence. They could not move. It was so stunning.
That's great.
I created an illusion with her as the mannequin that was better than the magic that I was doing.
Love that.
Well, it was good, and it was not so good, because at the end, the next day or so, we'd be walking down the hall, and they'd walk over to me and say, you were that magician? I said, yes. And they turned to her and she goes, were you the mannequin? And she go, yeah. And they go, that was amazing. And I'm dying laughing going, okay, this is not going to work. Anyway.
All right, let's move on to the next headline.
Please.
Here we go. The day after Hal's first son was born, he flew down to work on the film What About Bob with Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss.
That is true.
Oh,
wow.
Tell me about
that. Yeah. My first son was born. I was there for the birth. Peter Samuelson, who was a business partner of mine for years, we did a special effect for What About Bob? And so we hung out with Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss, Frank Oz.
Were you just in the hospital and you're like, oh, beautiful boy, and then you just ran out of the hospital, or what happened?
The next day. Yeah, absolutely. I flew down to on the set, which was like in Virginia or something. Because this may sound strange to people, but that's my job. That's what I do. When my father passed away, I did 2 shows that night in New Zealand. It's what you do. So when my son was born, the next day I had a job, so I went and did it. And yes, and I'm going to jump into this next one, which was opening night of the show Shaboom in Atlantic City. I was just about to go on stage, or the show was actually just about to start, when the phone rang and my wife called, said, he's here. My second child was born. I was not at the birth because, and again, that may sound strange to people, but that's what you do.
The show must go on. There's a reason for that expression. So what did you do on What About Bob?
We created a vanishing toothbrush. Not a vanishing, well, yes, actually it was vanishing. Bill Murray, the character, which you don't really see in the movie, you get hints of it, but you don't really know what it is a toothbrush salesman. At one point, he brushes his teeth. The toothbrush gets stuck in his throat, and for some reason, he can't pull it out, so he winds up pushing it into his throat.
Mm-hmm.
And we created one that he could actually do live.
Oh,
that's exactly what happened. We got a call from them saying, it was great, we love it, but when we tested it in front of people, they got sick.
Yeah,
watching it. Yeah, it was pretty gross.
That's good. All right, we'll go on to our next headline.
Okay.
For your first son, you ran out for What About Bob? Your second son was born, you said, as you were about to go on stage in Atlantic City.
Yes.
Okay, now here's headline 3. When Hal's third son was born, Hal was in the middle of his act at a magic convention, got the notification, and yelled to the audience, "It's a boy!"
Oh my God, that is so false. No, I only have 2 children. Yeah. However, I got to tell you, when number 2 was born, I'm in the stack of boxes myself, and I was working with Lee Allen, one of the best comedy magicians I've ever worked with, and Dane Anthony, an amazing singer. It was probably one of the best times I've ever had doing a show, and we did it 4 years in a row. We did it 9 weeks for the first 3 years, and then 2 weeks. We played 3 different casinos in Atlantic City, which was unheard of for a show. Well, we're just about to be produced. I'm just about to be produced from the stack of boxes, and Lee gets up and tells everybody I had a boy. Oh my God.
He tells everybody.
Yeah, so he tells everyone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm crying.
You're in the box going,
crying,
"Oh,
right?
boy,
I'm
oh
like,
my
oh man. Yeah, it was great.
All right, we'll go on to the next one. I love that. All right, next one. Hal performed in North Korea for the great leader Kim Il-sung's birthday bash.
Well, I'd like to say that was false, but it's true. It's true. Oh my gosh, yeah.
We do know that's true from talking about it earlier. But tell us the story.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. Peter Samuelson and I were business partners at the time in a company called The Magic Source. We did a lot of corporate work, trade shows, industrials, a lot of shows for just everything. It was a lot of fun. And we got a call from Derek Dingle and Shelley Carroll. They said that the consul or whatever, the mission, it was called a mission from North Korea, was looking for magicians to go to North Korea. Would we be interested? So we said, sure. So the 3 of us, Derek and Peter and I, went and we talked to them, and we said we'd certainly be interested, and we showed them some videos. They were very excited. So we went back, and then we get a call from Derek saying they'd love us to go, but we have to pay our own way. And we go, thank you very much. No.
Yeah.
So, and it was called the Friendship Arts Festival. We did not know it was the quote unquote great leader's birthday bash. Anyway, so we get a call later on saying, well, they've changed their mind and they are happy to pay our way round trip. We asked for round trip airfare, etc., and we'll be part of the circus performance group. I'm yeah, okay, great, let's do it. And then a couple weeks beforehand, Peter started thinking, my entire act is talk. He said, I really would prefer not to do it. And we discussed it, and I said, no, I absolutely understand that. So Peter and I reached out to a friend of mine, Mundaka Lee, who was an amazing manipulator, magician, incredibly creative guy, musician. I mean, this guy is intense. I asked Mundaka if he'd like to go with me, and he said yes. So he took Peter's place, and he and I went to North Korea, and we met tons of magicians from all over, and tons of acts, jugglers, and stuff from places. It was great. And actually, Mundaka and I had a mini magic convention, and invited the jugglers and people from China, Mongolia, Norway, Cuba, the European countries, and Russia. Oh my gosh, there was a guy from Russia, an amazing magician who entertained 3,000 people doing slidini silks.
Oh, nice.
I swear, great guy, and we all hung out. We had a great time entertaining each other at that party. It was so much fun. But I remember watching him, because Mundaka and I did 5 shows, and then we watched other shows.
This was in North Korea?
This was in North Korea, Pyongyang, the capital.
All right. And what year is this, to give people context?
I think it was in the 90s. It was like 23, 24 years ago. It was late 90s. And it was very interesting. We sent a telegram home that said, everything's fine, haven't had as much fun since George Orwell's party. We were being watched constantly, and I just wanted to kind of say that, saying we're okay, but it's very strange. And we sent that, and I know, because I actually have the original text that I wrote in the telegram that I had sent back to people. And everybody was, oh, I don't care what time we opened the door to our suite, our guide was there.
So you had a guide that was watching you every move you made?
Constantly. Yeah. You couldn't do anything on your own, which is okay. But it was very, very strange. Fun. It's something that only a handful of people will ever have the opportunity to do, but I would probably never go back.
Tell me a couple of the stories. I know it's a long, long story, but tell me a couple of the things that happened to you while you were there.
Well, the first thing is when we got off this plane, which was like straight out of Indiana Jones, actually on the plane, I read some literature, it said the imperialist American pigs, and it was like, whoa. It really freaked me out. We get off the plane and the committee's supposed to meet you, but we went to shake hands with them, and they, just the look they gave us was, and I'm not trying to, my feeling was it was pure hatred.
Oh.
They didn't know who we were, but they didn't care. That was one thing. We went and rehearsed, and we were given a driver and everything, and like 2 days later they took the driver away and made us, said to me, "We want you to go on the bus." We didn't care. We rehearsed like crazy before the first performance, and I get on stage and my back is towards the audience. The curtain opens up, and as the curtain opens up, Mundaka's music starts playing.
Instead of yours?
Instead of mine. Now, my music at that time was 11 minutes and 1 second long, and his music was 17 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So now I'm flipping out going, oh my gosh. Now there's 3,000 people in this, what they call circus theater, and there's a huge circus ring in front of me, like I'd say 50 feet in diameter, and people all around, and I'm on this like 70 foot, 80 foot wide stage.
And the wrong music comes on.
So the first thing I'm thinking to myself, okay, I start doing mannequin mime, the robotics. Yeah. And I figured I'm going to go as far stage left as I can. So I do robotic thing over to the stage left, and I bow. And then I turn, because what I'm thinking is, at the same time I hear backstage Mundaka freaking out going, oh my word, that's my music. He gets them, but right? So now what's going to happen is, when they finally realize, they're going to start my music from the beginning.
Oh, great.
So I have to make up time and figure out what. So then I do the robotic thing all the way across the stage right, and I bow, and I'm thinking, all right, I got to start soon. So I go back to the center, and I'm doing this robotic thing. Then I do the thing where I kind of break out of it, and I start, and I'm going really slow. The fire in my hand, I'm holding it. Then I do the flash, the silk, and I produce the first dove, and I hold the dove so they can see it, and I take my time going over to put it down, and then of course they start my music from the beginning. So now it's okay. I only have to slow down for another 60 to 75 seconds. And I did.
Let the music catch up to your act.
Yeah, it was crazy. It worked out okay. It was fine. That was one thing. Another thing, we asked to see some things that nobody else saw. So they took the two of us to the museum, their museum. Nobody else on the entire, there were like 700 or 800 people at this event, foreign entertainers, but we were the only two that were at this museum. And we had a personal guide, took us around with our guide as well.
What type of a museum was it?
Well, it was their history museum, historical museum. However, we were told that everything in the museum is a replica because the imperialist American pigs destroyed everything in the museum.
No.
Oh my gosh. What we found out, and I don't know if anyone knows this, but everything, and I mean everything, was created in North Korea. Man was discovered in North Korea. Fire was discovered in North Korea. Fireworks, pottery, everything came from North Korea, which was an enlightening thing.
I did not know that.
Oh, I know. Anyway, so we left the museum just shaking our heads. It was interesting. And then the other thing, one of the shows that we went to was actually to get to see the people that we were working with. We actually didn't perform. We were just watching. And we didn't know that Kim Il-sung was going to be there. So we're staying there, and he walks in, and there's 3,000 people. And you know how you see people crying and genuflecting on the streets? Well, I have to tell you, what you see in the video is a portion of what it was actually like. We're standing there, and everybody around us is bawling their eyes out and crying and bowing, and they are in the presence of what they consider to be a god.
Wow.
These are not leaders. They are God. And we could not believe what we were seeing. But it was real. It was real. and it was extremely disturbing. But of course, we looked and we just didn't say anything.
But yeah, what could you say?
No, nothing. And then shortly after the show, we were taken and we didn't know we were going to be in a group picture with everybody, the circus groups, and standing 10 feet in front of me was Kim Il-sung.
No.
Oh my gosh, it was very, very strange, and unfortunately, I feel bad. I mean, I was not dressed appropriately. I was wearing a leather jacket, and underneath my jacket, I had this Mickey Mouse shirt. But in the long run, what can be nicer than having Mickey Mouse in a picture
Representing the United States?
Yeah. Oh man,
is that the black and white photo that's in the Vanish magazine?
Yes. And if you look at the photo, you'll see me. I'm the tallest guy there in the back row, and standing directly to my left. If you're looking at the photos to my right, you'll see Mundaka.
I am definitely going back and looking at that.
Yeah, and super. And the two of us, long hair and very strange, but the entertainment was super. And one of the nice things was we actually did meet the Grand Master of Magic, and we saw his sons perform. We met them as well, and they were really wonderful. And the Grand Master came over and he introduced himself to me, and it was extremely complimentary, and it was really nice. I mean, so through magic, we were able to create this incredible dialogue in North Korea with North Koreans, with other entertainers from around the world, and it truly is a universal language, and it was just wonderful. We brought togetherness to North Korea. And camaraderie to magicians from all over the world. It's very neat.
Wow, what a spectacular experience.
It really was cool.
That was fact. Or something John just made up.
And I'm going to encourage everybody to take a look at that Vanish magazine, that article. I'm going to read that whole thing myself.
Oh, wow. And hey, and if you have any questions, you can certainly contact me, email me, and contact me. One of the things that we're doing, since I've started doing these magic conventions, I'm actually starting to do lectures. I've lectured in Brazil. I've lectured in Singapore. I lectured in New Zealand. I lectured in a number of different places, and Abbotts, the S.A.M. I actually just recently lectured in Maine.
I looked over some of your lecture notes, and they're great.
Well, thank you. It's a really interactive lecture. I don't want to spoil it, but I actually give things away when people first come in. They get a number of things to follow along, because I think that's really neat, and they get to keep those things.
In your lecture notes, I noticed there's a lot of technical stuff. You teach people how to do a lot of technical magic, right?
Well, it's interesting because I call it basics, but they're basic things. You learn I teach palming. I talk about rolls. I talk about naturalness, your naturalness. You're not going to be like anybody else.
Right.
And I talk about simple things and simple observations. For instance, one of the things I do, I take a rope and I tie a knot in the rope. And if you watch it close, you will be floored. It's a simple, basic overhand knot. But when you just open your hand and the knot's gone, it's astonishing.
I did watch it, and it is astonishing. Now, for people that can't see you live, how can they get a hold of some of these lecture notes?
Oh, wow. I thank you for asking. They can actually go to halmeyers.com or dameonmagic.com, which is a blog site, and contact me through that, or email me at dameonmagic@icloud.com or hmeyers1 at mac.com, HMEYERS, the number 1, the @ symbol, mac.com, and just request a set of lecture notes. Now, I charge $20 for it, and it's really kind of unique. What I would do...
$20 from learning the basics from a master is a great deal.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that immensely. And what it is, it's a downloadable set of lecture notes. There's over 600 megabytes of stuff. There are the lecture notes and video clips showing you how to do these things. What I would do is I would take a picture. It's a card with a unique code that's your code. You can download all the stuff. You can only download it one time, but you can download it. And then when I put new things up, and I have been threatening for the last couple of years to put new things up, and I will now that I've got some time on my hands. I'll be putting some new things up on there, and as I put new things up there, you will be alerted, and then you can download those for free.
So once you purchase the lecture notes, you'll get future lectures and future ideas for free.
Yes, absolutely. Until I decide to change the entire thing. And then I am absolutely happy to discuss things with you. We can do some one-on-one tutorials. Now, I usually charge a fee for that. But, you know, I would love to assist people and help them and discuss magic because I love it.
What a great deal you're offering.
Well, thank you.
Let's go into some fan questions. You want a couple of fan questions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Here's some fan questions. One from Michael King, who is a magician, screenwriter, TV producer, and director out of LA, says, one of magic's most talented and entertaining. Okay, that wasn't a question.
That wasn't a question, but I have to tell you, wait, I have to tell you, I met Mike when I was working in Miami Beach, and we became friends immediately. And he's a super nice guy, very funny, very entertaining, terrific entertainer, just great. I've known him, oh my gosh, for 40 years.
I'm going to tag him on this so he hears that.
All right, excellent.
All right, next fan question. Oh, I guess the first fan question. Eddie Rice Jr., who's an actor, clown, and stilt walker and loyal listener to the Variety Artist, he asks, how do you handle turbulence? Have you ever had an incident on a cruise where you hit rough waters and your props go flying across the stage?
Oh, my word. That is like the coolest. Yes.
No.
Yes.
What happened?
I was on the QE2. On the QE2, for that particular, it was like Stars Cruise. Tommy Toon was on board. Dom DeLuise was on board. Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons. I hung out with a number of them. And that night, I was doing a show in what they called the Queen's Room. It was a beautiful, beautiful room. And I'm set up on this sort of platform stage, and the band is behind me. Now, I worked to live music. If I can work to live music, I love it. It's the best. Mm-hmm. And we hit rough water. I mean, really rough. And the whole ship is rocking. And all of a sudden, I'm about to do my double dove production. And we really lurch over to one side. And some of the band members fall over. And some of my props are falling over. And people are sliding out of their seats. And drinks are falling over. And I'm standing there. Luckily, I bent my one leg to stop me from falling over. And just as we righted, I stand there, I look at everybody, I start laughing. I just produced the double doves because it didn't matter. It was great.
It's crazy. Everybody's going, oh my gosh, what happened?
Yeah, it was really funny. But that is always an issue. That's why when you have props, on wheels, you have to make sure that they lock.
All right, well, give us a piece of advice for the beginner, somebody just starting out, because people that are listening to this, there are a lot of pros listening to this, but there are also a lot of people just starting out.
Okay, well, nowadays, there's no excuse not to tape what you're doing. And I think that when you work on a routine, you should put up a camera, watch yourself do it, and be honest. Be honest. If it's lacking, then go back and keep working on it until it looks good. And then get advice from people that you trust. And I worked with Leland, and I worked with Peter Samuelson, and I worked with Raymond Crow, and I worked with Mike Miller. And
it is a good core. If you're going to hang around with a good core of people, those are good core people.
They really are. Great people out there. And that's the other thing, too, is I try and find something good about everything that I see. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to put anyone down in the business. If you don't like something, then fine, keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
You can always find something good to say about someone or something. And if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say it.
That's what Mama always taught me.
That's right. And Mama was right.
Well, one of the things I've learned over the years, and we'll wrap this up in a second, but one of the things I've learned over the years, appreciate anybody that you meet, because you never know what kind of a story or what they have to give you.
Oh, that is so true.
Or what you have to share with them, and how the two of you can work together to create something wonderful. Yeah, everybody has a mission and everybody's committed to something. It's up to us to find out what that is.
Exactly. And meeting you, and what you do, and opening up this world of variety artists, I'm blown away. I'm so excited because I just find it fascinating.
I'm excited too, because I've only been doing this now for I don't know, 6 or 7 months. I'm fairly new at this. I'm loving meeting people like you, people like Leland Faulkner, people that I've never met before, and I've learned more in the past 6 months than entertaining for the last 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
I love it.
Oh, it's great. It's really wonderful.
Thanks, Hal, for doing my podcast. And I know you mentioned earlier your information, but where can someone get a hold of you?
They can reach me at halmeyers.com or dameonmagic.com, or the emails, which is hmyers1@mac.com or dameonmagic@icloud.com.
Excellent. And they can get a hold of you there, or they can get the show notes there too.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And thanks to all my variety artists. If you found this podcast valuable, tell a friend. That's how we can spread the word. Also, make sure to get your free audiobook from audible.com. Just go to thevarietyartist.com/book to get your first book for free. You can reach me at john@thevarietyartist.com or join my Facebook group at The Variety Artist, where you can ask me to ask questions of our amazing guests like my friend Hal. Now go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.
That's all for this episode of The Variety Artist, but your journey continues on our website. Go to thevarietyartist.com for more strategies, insight, and resources, as well as show notes on today's guest to assist you in your career. We'll see you on the next episode of The Variety Artist. But until then, go out and book those gigs, make some money, and have some fun.